Welcome back to Money in the Tank, episode 26. And as of recording this pod, we have not yet released episode 25. There's a slight delay because our producer, Maddie, has bought a house. So congrats, Maddie.
Congrats, Maddie. Well done, mate.
I thought it was just logistical issues like the rest of the world at the moment.
Well, it kind of was logistical issues in a way. So we'll get that out soon. By the time you guys are hearing this one, there'll be two in short succession. So the format of the pod is going to stay the same, but because we haven't been recording for a little while, we don't have any Q&A to go with. So we've got some 50-50 still up our sleeves and plenty to discuss anyway in the world of finance and crypto and housing. But maybe we'll kick off with Rivkins again. Have you got Rivkins handy, Jolie?
And what episode are we on? 26, isn't it? Just past a quarter century.
Episode 26, we're on the way, mate. Like, we'll be raising the bat soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, bat territory.
All righty. So we've got here Renee on politics. So let's have a bit of a
topical
peek here. What do we got? So never offer any advice unless asked. And then it's another one. I started smoking cigars because I like them. Now they are my trademark and I have to smoke them whether I want to or not.
I reckon you've said that one before.
Okay. There you go. I've got to tick it off then.
Give it. That's a 2-for-1. But you know what? The never offer advice unless you ask. Man, Rivkin would hate me because I'm just mansplaining all the time. I can't help but give my opinion.
Can't help it up. You're an opinionated guy, Arnie.
Fancy that, Arnie. Me and you, butting heads over the years from opinions.
That'd be a good podcast. One night we record one at the poker table after a few drinks and have differing opinions on things. That'd be very interesting.
Flipping the tables.
Not safe for work. Not safe for work.
Indeed.
We've got a bit to discuss today, boys. So we're going to discuss Evergrande briefly because that was in the news. We're going to discuss PPI and CPI figures coming out of China and the USA. And I don't know when we get ours. I need to look up the Aussie ones. I've got some more crypto news, which maybe I'll lead off with and talk about Elon Musk's Twitter poll as well, among other things. So we'll jump into it. But I am the proud new owner of a new shitcoin, and I can't wait to tell you both what it's called because I want your genuine reaction on the pod. I now own in the approximate range of 54 million tokens of a coin called meth. The meth.
What
token.
is it? Is it a game, like a Breaking Bad game coin, crypto coin, or something?
No, it's this bloke I know. His real name's James, but his screen name is Dust, and he makes shitcoins. But when I say he makes shitcoins, and Brad, you're probably more up with this than Jolie or I are, but he makes this type of coin, which is like a dividend coin. So when you transact with the coin, pro rata based on the amount of coins that you have, then you get paid dividends. So like if you were to buy or sell using this coin, then you get some like of the coins spread around your account, however that works. And he's got two different types of coins. So there's one called Meth Coin, which is mirrored Ethereum, and there's one called Drip, which is Dividend Ripple XRP coin. So I didn't get on the Drip train, unfortunately. And the Drip one went like to the moon, man. Like it went to like 200K market cap. But then it came back down, and everyone was accusing him of like, going to be like a rug pull. And he's like, if it went to 200K, why wouldn't I have rug pulled it right then and there? Like, I'm not going to rug it. It's like I'm trying to make a legitimate coin here.
So, is there any value at the moment to meth?
There's bugger all value to meth at the moment, mate. Apart from sentimental value to me.
Love it.
But I just thought it was hilarious. So you can actually trade this coin now. So this is general in nature. Do your own research, and you don't have to go and look at it. But if you want to go and pump some meth coin, it's at you can trade it at PooCoin and you can trade it at Pancake Swap, and Drip as well.
Pancake Swap's huge. So if they're on there, at least it's there.
Oh yeah, no, they're big exchanges, and I think they're going to try and get them listed in other places. But yeah, it's funny, man. Just like I'm really diving into the world of crypto now. I've got a MetaMask. Yeah. I was going to
say, you are like the sultan of shitcoins, huh?
Yeah. And SHIB, what's been happening with SHIB? It's come down a lot, but I'm still up on my
down at 20% this week. So,
yeah, no worries. The volatility is just, mate, no worries.
Yeah, it's been an interesting week. I sort of try to keep a little bit of an eye on my Binance account and see what's going on.
Last 3 hours.
In the Ethereum and the BTC world, and they've just run, haven't they?
Have you seen what's happened in the last 3 hours?
Yeah, they've run to the last 3-4 hours. Yeah.
I haven't actually seen it.
And then we'll talk about that later in the crypto bit. Yeah. I've got some numbers around it.
Let's talk now. Tell us what's happening with Bitcoin.
Oh, okay, cool. So BTC had a huge week. We ran from 62K up to 69K as of last night, overnight. And then in the last 4 or 5 hours, we actually had a crash all the way down to 61.5. ETH ran from just above 4,800 all the way down to about 44.5 before recovering. So at the moment, as of about half an hour ago, Bitcoin's trading at just below 65K and Ethereum's above 46. So we had new all-time highs though during the week for Bitcoin and
when
Ethereum.
you were back on Australian shores, Tabone, are you going to be continuing to watch in US dollars or Australian dollars?
Yeah, it's interesting.
Is it going to be too hard for you to change from US dollars?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be too hard for the crypto sake of things. Yeah, that's a good point. All of those numbers were in US dollars. You're going to be nearly approaching, based on what, like a 73 FX rate at the moment, we're approaching nearly 100K.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've got mine tracked in Aussie dollars. So, the BTC went up to about 92, I reckon.
Yeah, we've gone close.
Yeah, and Ethereum was about 6 and a bit. So, yeah.
So, Brad, what caused this massive dip? And it looked like you were showing me like there's like a huge drop and then it sort of rebounded very, very quickly.
Yeah, look, whenever a huge drop occurs, it's always just leverage getting taken out. So who knows what causes the initial kind of sell? I mean, it could be anything just from, liquidations towards the end of the year. It could be, I think I sent you earlier, Arnie, something around, there was a dormant wallet with 2,207 Bitcoins in it that has been dormant, so non-used for 8.1 years. So since 2013 or 14, worth $150 million, and it just came online moving some coins onto the exchange, right?
Wow.
So it could just be someone that's like, I found my hard drive. I'm worth 150 mil now. I'm going to dump some coin to actually, start living my life. It could be something as simple as that.
There's a really interesting podcast I listened to about a year ago now. I think it was NPR Network, and they actually taped a guy that was trying to find his hard drive that he lost years ago. And they sort of spoke on how many they think Bitcoins are actually lost out there. Was it
3 mil is the estimation.
Yeah.
Out of the 21 million circulation, between 3 to 3.5 million they think are actually lost. So I mean that brings it in and makes it even more scarce, right?
Yeah.
That guy ended up raising $30 million from a venture capital fund to go and get the permits to then go and get it, so they get part of the actual. They bought in from a risk perspective, from a PE or equity firm perspective, to try and find his hard drive.
They're going to try and find it in a dump.
Would have been.
Yeah, so basically...
It was an English guy, wasn't it?
English, yep.
English guy. And
he raised about 30 million.
Did he find it, but he couldn't actually open it, or was it...
I haven't heard what happened after, basically, because he was waiting on some permits to actually go and search the tip from the local government. He'd raised the money, but it was conditional on obviously getting the permit. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of coins out there that are non-existent. Well, this person, good on them, 8.1 years. There's no way that was... there's no way that person knew they had those coins and wouldn't have sold in like 2017 or something like that, when it, a little bit in the run-up, or at least made it active. So good on whoever that was. But what causes it is leverage. So the market, because of the hot run this week, and as kind of Joel mentioned earlier on, we had a big run across all coins. And so leverage was at an all-time high again. And what happens is you just like tap it a little bit, and it's just like margin calls. It just drops all the way down. And then you'll see the bigger institutionals just have, buy orders in it, like 61, 62, 63K, and they'll just start chomping it back up. And so no doubt we're going to be, general advice, don't kind of listen to me, but, it bounced back up. I think in about 10 minutes, when I was speaking to my wife, Amy, this morning, it bounced back up about a quarter or a third of what it dropped in about 10 minutes. So I think, health-wise, there's still a record scarcity of ETH and Bitcoin. So there's more people that are taking it off exchanges onto their cold storage, which means that basically they're not looking to sell the coin. Miners aren't selling at the moment. So it's like all new records of basically scarcity, which generally with sentiment drives things up. But again, who knows, as we saw kind of over the last 4 hours.
Isn't it also true, and I think we've spoken about this before, but I'm forgetting the details, that the person or the group, Satoshi Nakamoto, don't they also hold a really large chunk of the supply that hasn't been touched forever?
1 million coins.
Yeah, 1 million coins. Is that included in the 3 million that people are saying is lost?
No. Because there was actually a transaction recently, probably about. So you had Hal Finney in Australia, who they think is either one of them or is. He went to court because they said, does he have access to the wallet? He said no. But then about 2 months after that, 1 or 3 Bitcoin just moved from the wallet just to show that someone still has access to the million. So there is someone that still has access to 1 million Bitcoin, which is interesting. What other ones? So big movers this week. We've got Loop Ring, which is basically, for those that need to know, it's Ethereum layer 2. So Ethereum's layer 1. You've got layer 2 solutions underneath that. And basically it's going to make the ability to build decentralized exchanges way easier. So that moved up 150%.
I'm pretty sure. I think Loop Ring is connected to a gaming platform or an NFT platform, perhaps as well.
It's multiple chains. So the idea around this is it's going to be easy to build decentralized exchanges across on different blockchains and bring them together.
Yeah.
Live Peer. So Live Peer, think YouTube, but for decentralization. So you had Audacity, which I got into about 9 months ago, which is like the Spotify of decentralized, and now you've got Live Peer, which is the video streaming for decentralized. It's 130%. You had a new layer 1 solution come out called Cadena, backed by JP Morgan, some JP Morgan investors. That ran 130%. So that's kind of running against ETH and Solana and ADA. And they're not doing proof of stake, which is where you put your coins in, you return some interest and reduces the size of transactions. They've just worked out a way to still do 480,000 transactions a second, but keep the old proof of work. So interesting. And last one is Helium, 60%, which is a Internet of Things. My venture capital principal that worked on my company's Series A told me about this about a year and a half ago. And I was like, yeah. And I looked at it and it's done 2,600% in the last year. Which,
oh, my God.
And he's actually a very smart person, much smarter than me, and I should have listened to him, but I didn't. And basically what it is you create these little Helium hubs, and you get paid for people using your connectivity. And it's just created like basically a mesh across the country, and so of internet connectivity. So that's interesting.
Sounds really interesting, actually. Cool.
Some other news: the metaverse, as you know, Facebook released the Meta, or renamed as Meta. The metaverse is actually blown out in crypto, all the kind of metaverse stuff, or metaverse kind of plays. And so you've had like Sandbox do 5,000% in the last year, and Mana do 2,600%. They're kind of the two big ones. And gaming continues to be huge in crypto. Bigger, it's growing bigger in NFTs at the moment. So just decentralized gaming, like Axie Infinity and stuff like that, just continues to grow. And a couple of quick bits.
Wait, before you go on, I think you've hit like a really interesting spot in crypto, which is like in my own new research has got me excited, which is the fact that we're going to have gaming, so crypto gaming. And I reckon, how long do you reckon it's going to be before a digital piece of land in a crypto game sells for more than a real piece of land?
Or is it already in Sandbox right now?
That is unbelievable. How much are they going for?
I mean, they're going for $300,000, $400,000 US.
USD? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, and so you had recently you had Atari. So Atari has bought land and built this massive Atari thing in there, and they're going to be like introducing games in the in the gaming metaverse. And then people are earning, so you earn the gaming currency while you're playing the game and swapping stuff and buying stuff and lending stuff and selling stuff to people. And then you can use that currency and just use a decentralized exchange to buy stuff. And so people are now, especially like the Philippines and stuff like that at the moment, which is huge. You've got thousands and thousands of people who are living inside the games in the metaverse, doing things inside there that earn currency, and then using that currency to buy and pay for their lives. And so they're never actually now touching the old economy. So they don't even know what that's worth anymore. So you're not touching you're not touching fiat at all. And you're just earning, you're living with inside a new, and that's kind of an interesting concept. I kind of came across it 3 weeks ago. It's kind of an interesting thing where you're no longer connected with the actual economy that we all live in.
We all part of. Well, I think
fascinating.
That's the ultimate vision for the metaverse. Like you work in the metaverse, you go to the movies in the metaverse. You know, so that's crazy, man. It's wild.
It's crazy. It's happening now in the Philippines. If any of our listeners want to have a look into that, have a look into Axie Infinity. That's AXIE Infinity. It's probably the biggest gaming one out there at the moment. And just type in that in Philippines, and you'll come up with a ton of interesting information to read. Because it's fascinating.
That's wild.
Sorry, Arnie.
No, go on, mate. What were you going to say?
I was going to say the quick bits, but if you've got something else to say around gaming,
please.
We got a special on gaming, mate.
Go ahead.
So Brave browser, I don't know. I use it. I don't know if any of you use it, but it's like
I've never heard of it.
Browser. So it's now bigger than Internet Explorer and Mozilla. It's taken basically the people that care about privacy, but it's Chrome, but just private Chrome. Think about that. But it's used by. Give me a second. How many people? How many users are on Brave?
Have you heard of it, Jolie? Brave browser?
No, I haven't. I've obviously Microsoft Edge have been trying to push to get them using as their default Google Chrome. Yeah, so that's sort of that's the extent of it for me. I can't bother getting Mozilla Firefox or anything. But tell us about is it Brave? Is it
Brave? Yeah. So Brave's got 38 million users and it's growing faster than any other browser. But basically Solana. So I think, I've talked about Solana being a layer one solution before, backed by that $24 billion 29-year-old that made a lot of money in crypto. So Solana and Brave have done a partnership, and so it's going to become the standard currency inside Brave to actually buy stuff. Which is going to be a very interesting thing. So he's just opened up to 39 million users to be the standard currency within that browser, and they're looking at how they can integrate into doing payment services to basically pay for anything through the browser, tip people, on Twitch and the rest of it, and they'll do the fiat transaction side of things. So it's starting to get into that side of it. Twitter came out. They're launching a dedicated crypto team. So they've integrated ETH into their platform, but they've got a dedicated team. Tim Cook came out. Apple is now looking at Apple Pay and how to utilize crypto into Apple Pay. They're not looking to buy Bitcoin, but they're looking to actually start integrating different cryptos into Apple Pay. And so it's like a seamless transaction, which is very interesting.
And he said that he owned Bitcoin as well, Tim Cook.
Yeah, personally he owned Bitcoin.
It's always been a big thing, I think, with the instos over the years, and Australian instos as an example have always been a bit threatened by the big tech companies, not so much other institutions or other global institutions coming to shore here. It's always been about the tech companies and where they're going to be able to take market share. So Apple Pay and Google Pay, all those things coming in as the biggest threat, I think, to Australian banks in terms of payment systems. And I did read that CommBank earlier this week.
Yeah, that was my next bit of news. I thought nice segment there.
Yeah, on net banking. Yeah, so they're going to, I think it's early next year maybe, start to integrate. Is it starting off just with Bitcoin purchases?
Just Bitcoin purchases through the custodian of Gemini. So Gemini's the Winklevoss twins, actually, the guys that started Facebook and sued him and now worth $6 billion. They had Gemini, and they're going to be the custodians initially while regulation gets set up in Australia properly. But so financial advisors aren't going to be able to recommend it. Companies aren't allowed to buy it, but individual everyday people like you or I are going to be able to buy it through NetBank.
Wow, that is crazy. I didn't hear about
one of the first banks in the world. Yeah. So I had my mates over here going, do you know Commonwealth Bank? And I was like, They're like, they're leading the way in crypto. I was like,
very unusual from the Commonwealth Bank's side of things because they're usually quite conservative. So
we'll have a think about that, Joel, what you said before, though, right? I think
they're worried.
I think the big four are worried at the moment.
So it wouldn't surprise me the other three come along as well.
So,
that's massive news in the crypto space. I feel like we've touched on a lot of big news there.
Yeah. But Discord, Arnie. You got Discord teaming up with ETH.
And MetaMask. I heard that Discord might be teaming up with MetaMask as well. So we've got a lot
from a wallet perspective, but ETH from a financial currency, like a currency perspective of being able to pay for channels within there and subscriptions and all sorts of stuff. So, I mean, it's integrating, boys.
My head's spinning.
There's so much here to digest. I can't even think about where to go with it. I think we need to just cool off on crypto.
Well, let's segue because my last bit was inflation.
Okay.
Yeah.
To kind of segue. So the last thing is obviously the inflation numbers coming out of the US today of annualized 6.2%. And some of the big things in there are like, goods, durable goods, and the rest of it are up like 18%. Cars are up 24%. But that's possibly a driver of Bitcoin's further price this year, because it's kind of a deflationary asset.
Yeah.
Class, again, general advice, not saying go do it, but it's, that's another big news in the Bitcoin world was the inflation figures today.
I know that if you strip out the food and energy, it came down to 4.6%, still really large. But if you remove those two big purchases, and it takes it out.
It's all to do with the weighting, though, right? I mean, there's like how many different 30 classes, and then the weightings, and they can play with the weightings. But
interesting that
so I was going to just into segue into this kind of inflation jolly, Arnie.
Yeah, I think it was the largest. I was reading it was the largest increase they've had since 1990. Yeah,
30 years. Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know that the PPI in the US was really big too. I think the PPI, let me just quickly find it actually. The PPI
the other thing interesting, while you're looking at that, Arnie, is it sort of says investors looked outside of stocks and bonds for inflation hedges, and it's usually just sort of talk about gold, US dollar, but they actually said gold and Bitcoin rose as investors sought assets that could hold up better as price rises. So Bitcoin starts to make it into these things now as an inflation hedge, which I think we spoke about on last week's podcast, where with all the QE printing goes to, gold's always been a bit of a safe haven against that. And now Bitcoin's potentially a hedge against and a safe haven against inflation as well.
PPI year over year, October for the US, 8.6%, and excluding food and energy, 6.8%. And comparatively to China, which came out, I think, yesterday, their PPI year over year.
PPI stands for, Arnie?
Producer price index, sorry. So CPI is consumer price index. PPI is looking at the producer side who's producing these goods. The PPI in China year over year actual 13.5% versus 10.7%. And the previous estimate was 12.3%. So it was way higher than the estimate. Their CPI though, actual 1.5 versus 0.7. So it's still doubled. And the previous estimate was 1.4. So it's up there as well. I don't have, has Australia released their figures recently? I haven't looked at ours.
I haven't seen it come out. I know we had the RBA meeting the other day, which I'll get to in our next segment. But I don't think I've read anything about the Australian CPI figures just yet.
Yeah. Okay. Still got to wait to hear.
What is that? And on the gold and Bitcoin discussion, I mean, it is an interesting one. If you have a look at market cap growth and inflows, and also the price over the last year and a half since we kind of started pumping the markets full of cash and printing money, have a look at gold's performance versus Bitcoin's performance across all those kind of three metrics, and you'll see there's a huge swap to Bitcoin, which is very, very interesting, I think.
Gold's losing its luster a little bit in that sense.
Because of its transferability is a big part of it, right? Bitcoin you can take anywhere in the world on a little ledger and, physically with yourself. And obviously with a little bit of gold you could, but you can't.
Hard to lug around bullion.
So it's very interesting.
But just touching on the China thing as well. I know we spoke about it maybe off air, but Evergrande, it was reported earlier today that Evergrande had defaulted, and then there was an update, and at the last minute they made two really big payments and avoided default. So,
but again, offline, I think we'll talk about that those payments are being made like emergency by the Evergrande founder using his own capital at the moment. Obviously, Chinese government pointed towards him and said, you are to use your own capital to pay down as much of this as possible. And I'm guessing create a bit of breathing room. But, they did make those two bond payments. But I think the scary thing, at least for me personally, opinion, coming out of China at the moment is the flow and effect that Evergrande is having on the Chinese real estate market. So it's the first time in like 30 years that the Chinese new home loans and new home buying has actually negatively gone down. And at the moment, due to the liquidity of Evergrande selling down properties, trying to get rid of their $100 or $200 billion worth of supposed nearly finished projects, it's pushing the entire market down. So the flow-on effect occurs. So there was a Chinese firm called Kaisa, Kaisa, this week. They've got about 100 billion yuan, so about 20 billion, 30 billion US dollars worth of property that they're trying to sell down. But because of Evergrande selling property and then thus reducing the price of demand and supply, they've now pushed past one of the 3 lines in the sand that the government put in place, a 60% short-term debt ratio, and they're now kind of halted on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange and are looking at fire selling their wealth management arm because they just recently missed a wealth management payment, which is kind of what they use in China to raise a lot of capital, build these buildings. So the contagion effect is starting to actually play out, and you had the Fed come out for the first time actually yesterday and change their tune a little bit over here in the US. And they came out saying there's now a little bit of risk out there. It's about not necessarily about direct risk into the banks, but more around the sentiment and how does that go with inflation and everything else in the economy over here at the moment in the US. I'm not talking about in Australia at the moment. So so you're saying, is interesting.
You're saying, because I know back when Jay Powell, the Fed chair, I think it was in September, he came out and said there's not a lot of direct exposure, meaning
Correct.
But so he's saying now that even if there is a little bit of exposure in some stressed companies in the US, that sentiment could cause a bit of panic.
It's carrying across. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's creating panic. And I think, the bit in China that's interesting for Australia is obviously, iron ore prices are continuing to, because obviously there's less demand. Real estate makes up 32% of GDP in China.
Yep.
So, that slows down. The use of steel and the rest of it slows down. Obviously demand into our coal and iron ore slows down. And China's just put forward 120 million tons of closed steel recycling, which basically means it's going to reduce the amount of output of Australia, need of 200 million tons of iron ore and 100 million tons of coking coal. And so that's coming into play as well as this drop down in the residential market or property market in China. So you can combine those two things together. That's interesting.
So a bit of contagion in our Aussie market with producers like Fortescue, Rio, BHP, and they might see a bit of short-term pain there unless they can find other buyers for their
other markets, other demand.
WA might have to come back into the country. Start struggling with their.
Isn't that what they do though? Isn't it like 2008 and 2012 when they were bumping up the Australian Australian economy? They're saying you rely on us, and then 2012 they're like, please help. And then
I think they had a good year last year too.
Yeah, last year they went back out saying we want to secede and
we want to adjust the GST policies, etc.
Man, boys, have you checked the stock price of Rio recently? I just looked at it now out of curiosity, and it is at a low. It hasn't been this low since the start of 2020.
I read at the start of the Evergrande thing that didn't look like there was going to be any government intervention. And does it still seem that way? Have the Chinese government come out and sort of said they haven't said anything? Or?
They're not doing anything direct, but I mean, they are indirectly. So the Chinese government will never come out and because they don't believe in government intervention in terms of companies doing bad decisions, because that's what they kind of put America over the hot coals for, right? In Europe. But indirectly, they are definitely putting liquidity into different financial organizations and continuing to make sure that the banking sector is oiled via many different means. That's not directly coming out and saying that we are doing X, Y, Z. But I mean, the one thing they do well compared to, I would say, the Western counterparts is they do hold people accountable for some of these decisions and screwing up. So it'll be interesting to see
where it all comes, and the confidence levels of the Chinese public in property is sort of, I guess, moving on to another segment which we're going to chat about is the RBA's decision, but also about property here in Australia and the confidence levels. The government's always, government doesn't want to see prices escalate like they're seeing them escalate because it's sort of bad for policy. It's bad for new home buyers and future generations, but they also like to have the confidence that property gives people as well. And you see that with, Australian property being held in pretty high regard. On a smaller scale, your CBD Melbourne, your CBD Sydney, the apartment market has probably had an oversupply, and there's issues with, rents dropping over the pandemic and hard to sell those, and there's more going up. So you got a supply demand issue there. But
I felt that directly.
Yeah. So it's more broadly, I think, in Australia, property has done very, very well the past couple of years, and it's a double-edged sword. The government wants to, hopefully see things calm down a bit, but also doesn't want to see things necessarily drop, because they want that confidence there as the economies recover after these lockdowns and after this pandemic as well. So it's the RBA,
a big part of the economy as well, right?
It's a huge part.
Construction industry.
Yeah, it's massive.
$170 billion.
And it's where they always approach it first. They try to stimulate, housing, because that flows on to everywhere, which we've spoken about on the pod before. You stimulate the housing, you're then stimulating so many different factors of the economy, because people need to get all the inputs. They need to build the house, the tradies, the local coffee shops, the food places. Then you got your white goods, all those things, your fit outs, furniture. It just stimulates so many different areas. So that's what they always like to do. But when they did that at the start of this pandemic, it's then sort of created this. It's sort of added fuel to a fire, essentially, and the fire was already going and starting to go, and then they've poured a bit of gasoline on it. And I guess the RBA came out on Tuesday, Melbourne Cup Day, and spoke about they kept the interest rates at 10 basis points. They've announced the discontinuation of what's called the yield curve control. So they've essentially wanted to stop the yield curve, trying to keep the yield curve under control, because they felt like that was sort of naturally now occurring or keeping in pace. They're going to keep their $4 billion a week of quantitative easing until mid-Feb, and they want to keep that there. Philip Lowe came out saying the RBA is going to continue to be supportive of monetary policy until inflation is sustainably in their 2 to 3 target range. And the main change of language was that their expectation was only going to occur in 2024, is they indicated it probably won't be above 2.5% inflation until the end of 23. And I think he came out the very next day, because I think a couple of his words got misconstrued, saying that they don't expect rates to be rising in 2022, because a lot of the economists then started jumping ahead and forecasting it. So I think, he's very, very confident that they're going to be low rates till 2023, but we'll see what transpires.
Indeed.
Yeah, and the property markets, continue to tick along well. I think they're starting to slow down a little bit, and you can see some of the auction clearance rates coming off a touch, but they're coming off very high levels. So, it'll be interesting to see how the market finishes towards the end of 2022. 2021, with lockdowns obviously coming up, easing off in Melbourne and Sydney as to how they go, especially Melbourne, given we've lagged a lot, and then moving into 2022 as to how things progress as well.
Hey, just get out there and spend. That's what I'm doing. I'm just going to just dump all my money into the economy so we can recover fast as
you legend, you.
Buying a lot of unnecessary things, Arnie.
Oh, yeah, if you consider all my D's merchandise, it's flowing straight to the Melbourne Football Club. So, yeah. But one last story I want to touch on, boys, before we go to our 50-50 segment is, did you see Elon Musk's Twitter poll about asking the world, basically, so not just Tesla shareholders, anyone that wants to participate, whether or not he should sell 10% chunk of his shares? Have you followed this story?
I didn't follow the story, but I saw a headline of it.
Did you follow that?
Said yes. Oh, of course. I mean, from my point of view, though, he's just doing that. He was always going to sell because he has to fund a $26 billion. I mean, he can fund it by other means, but he's got to fund $26 billion worth of taxation options come Q2 or 3 next year.
August next year.
And the US taxational year finishes 31st of December, and the new federal government is going to be increasing taxes by 4%, right, on the mega wealth. So it may be worthwhile him selling it this side. But they're saying that it's interesting. So if he just did an SEC notice, standard one, like what usually happens.
Yeah, the Form 4.
The Form 4 comes out, and just says Elon Musk sells, $26 billion. People will probably freak out because they don't know why. And, dump Tesla more, whereas he's kind of gone out to the market inadvertently via Twitter, said, should I? And I'm gonna abide by the poll. Got it out there. It dropped It dropped like 8-9%, then rebounded back up, so it only kind of lost 3-4%. I think that's a pretty good result.
It's more than that. Over the first couple of trading days this week, I think it dropped like 20% from its all-time high, maybe a bit more actually.
And it rebounded though.
It has rebounded since, but I think it's interesting, right? Because you say like he was going to sell anyway, and you're probably right. Like it's in his best interest to sell. But when he put the poll up, he said he was prepared to accept either outcome, either selling his shares or not selling his shares. So I was having a chat about some.
He also knows the amount of trolls on the internet, mate.
Yeah. And
he's the king of Twitter.
You linked me that Patrick Boyle video on YouTube, which is also very informative and explains that he had been borrowing against his shares anyway to sort of fund his lifestyle. So he was going to have to pay that back. So if he wasn't going to sell his shares to do so, because that's the only way Elon can get money because he takes no salary, the only option left to him would be to borrow money from third parties. To then pay back that loan that he took against his assets, or to also, fund the exercise of the share options and pay the large capital gains tax that he would come due, which is something like $15 billion of it is taxable. So it's interesting that he was prepared to do that if everyone had voted no, because that's literally the only way he could have done
but
it.
I think 100%. I think he's got he thought he knows Twitter and trolls, and everyone's like, yes. But B, he's got a secondary option, and he's that kind of guy. It's just like, he gambled on the South Australian battery thing and said, if I can't do it in 100 days, have it for free. Like he's willing to put his money where his mouth is.
Oh yeah, well there was that world hunger thing of like a week or so before that, when the UN said 2% of his worth or whatever, or 6 billion could solve world hunger.
And he's like, okay.
Show me the accounting and I'll solve world hunger then.
He said, do transparent accountancy and prove it to me and I'll dump it in the next day. And the guy's like, you took my words out of, it's only immediate world hunger and rah. And he's
quick to call it out. But the interesting thing about his share thing as well is I was reading some Twitter threads about what he could possibly do, and they were saying another option that he could have done was set up some special purpose vehicles, and they were joking and calling it the foe, which was Friends of Elon, and sell to them at whatever price, get the money, and then buy it back later on if you wanted to hold like all of the.
And the last one was a charity over here. You can set up a charity, donate your whatever, your crypto, your stock, or whatever.
The proceeds from the sale, so it becomes a taxable write-off.
Yeah, and then the charity basically say, cool, let's just say the animal farm of California.
Yeah.
At the end of so when you die, anything in there will go to the animal, but in between there, you can pay yourself a dividend every single year.
He's done that in the past.
There's many ways, but yeah.
He's done that in the past with one. I think it was like 2000. I forget when it was. It was like either 2012 or 2016 or something. He had some sort of sale of stock, and he donated a very large chunk of it so that he would be able to write it off on his taxes.
Can you do that, Jolly, in Australia? Can we donate to charities and pay yourself as a...
Not that I've heard of. They're very
beneficiary.
The ACNC is very strict on charities, and I think it used to be a little bit more wrought with a few things. But yeah, you don't. I'm sure there's still some charities out there that might be a little bit sketchy. But
anyway, as you can imagine, Jolly, that you haven't been following. So the outcome was yes. So he said he's going to sell 10% of his stock, which is 2%, or maybe it's like 1.7% of the total Tesla float. And because he didn't do it quietly, like Brad alluded to with the Form 4, where he could have just sold small chunks over the next 6-month period, now we don't even know if he sold it. He probably hasn't sold it. And it's gone down an enormous amount. And he's lost in notional gains on, paper gains. I think he'd lost over like 30 billion or 50 billion. Yeah. So it's a bit of a wake-up call to the American government to say, if you're going to tax unrealized gains or let people claim unrealized losses, this is what could happen. So
that's why he did it.
Yeah, that's why he did it.
At the end of the day, him and the Biden government have been... I mean, the Biden government held an EV conference when Biden came in at the start of the year, and Ford and General Motors were invited, and Mercedes or Daimler, whatever they're called. Tesla wasn't invited.
Yeah, and they pioneered EVs, yeah, basically.
I mean, it's Biden government versus Elon at the moment.
It's the same with the infrastructure bill. The infrastructure bill allows the American taxpayers to get an EV credit up to $12,500, but a chunk of that is for union-made vehicles only. So I think for Tesla buyers, they're only entitled to about 7,500 or 8,000.
Yeah, it's about 6.5, 7. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's
again just to give it to the man. But I mean, look, I'm not looking feeling too sorry for him. He's still worth 200 and
Oh, he wouldn't want you to be, mate. He's laughing. He's laughing all the way to the bank. So,
has anyone ever said how much Bitcoin he owns?
No, not personally.
Personally, I don't think anyone knows, but it's public how much Tesla owns.
Yeah.
They bought 1.5 bill. It went up, and they sold about 300 mil.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Again, USD, everybody.
USD, yeah.
USD.
Good updates, guys. So I think we've probably covered on a fair few points there over the last 40 minutes or so. So it's any of the listeners,
wide-ranging topics.
Yeah, any of the viewers or listeners out there, if you want to comment, like, subscribe, or chat to us, or ask any questions, how do they get onto us, Arnie?
At Money in the Tank on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and please get us on any of those. But we appreciate when you interact with the YouTube video, because that helps us reach more viewers. So maybe we've got to dive into 50-50, what's your choice, gun to your head, debit or credit. So I don't, because we've been off air for a little bit, we haven't got any in the bank. But did you say you had one ready, Jolie, or you had one?
Yeah, so there's a 50-50 from just chatting with you guys prior to the start of the pod today, because I said heading out tonight to watch the new James Bond movie, which I've been excited about. It's anniversary night tonight, so we're going for some dinner and go see the new Bond. I've been waiting for it since the start of 2020 when it got cancelled, delayed because of the pandemic. So I have been looking forward to it, and I do enjoy the Bond flicks ever since Daniel Craig came on the scene. But it was actually a third question today is, what's your preference out of the three probably best action franchises of the past 2 decades, I guess you could say? You've got the Bond franchise. We're sort of just talking Daniel Craig on. We've got Mission Impossibles from, I'd say, 3 onwards. I don't really rate 2, and one's a bit old school. Or the Bourne franchises.
Wow, go, Brad.
I'll go. Since I've just watched for about Bond's probably my favorite, but at the moment, like series-wise, if I pick all of them, Mission Impossible, I've just watched the last 3 in the last week, and they're awesome. I love Daniel Craig. I love Rami Malek. I love the last couple. But they're a bit more dark and all the rest of it. But action-wise, Mission Impossible.
Yeah. Arnie?
Man, that's a really hard one, because, I feel like you guys have hit the nail on the head. The Mission Impossible franchise, I agree with about 1 and 2. Like, 1 was cool, but it's old school. 2, didn't rate, but they've definitely picked up their game. Bourne, I do like, but I feel like Bourne is like really skewed towards the action-y side of things, like where I like.
Also went downhill a little bit, but I think I have to go Bond, because I'm just so nostalgic about James Bond. Like, even I love the Daniel Craig ones, apart from Quantum of Solace, and I'm a really big fan of the old James Bonds. I've got the books on my shelf, actually. I own all the Ian Fleming books. And the Connerys.
Yeah, but even not just the movies. I love the books as well. So
gotcha.
I have to go with James Bond out of all of them. I just feel like it's.
I was going to say, the storyline for Bond and all the rest of it, yes, but I think pure like mixture of action, the rest of it, aren't Mission Impossible. Hey, Jolie,
I find it hard, mate. They're like my 3 children. I really find it hard to split them. I agree that probably the latest Bourne, which was the Jason Bourne, probably was probably the most kind of the low key of all mediocre. Of them. The
Quantum Solace of Bournes.
Yeah, that's right. It was still okay. I think it just lacked something that the others had. The MIs, the first one was kind of a different era. The second one was just a write-off. I think they regretted making it. It was John Woo, I think, was the director.
We'll just leave that one alone.
In Australia, leave that alone. I've struggled to rewatch that, to be honest. I think I've only ever done it once. And then the Bonds from Craig onwards, Casino Royale onwards. I think all 3 of them brought kind of the action from what it was in the 90s to like new modern action, which is pretty cool. I'm going to differentiate. I'm going to go Bournes. Love them. The Identity Supremacy, Ultimatum, just awesome. Just love it. Starting off European set, probably one of the trailblazers to get into Europe and take it out of the US and do it over there, and how they sped up the action scenes. Just, I think it's ever so slightly, like 1.2 times, 1.5 times.
The choreograph of the actual fight scenes are pretty.
Yeah, they're just awesome, and what's his name? Matt Damon just does an awesome job. I think he learned Krav Maga to the Israeli combat fighting to actually put into the scene. So if you notice in the fight scenes, it's just grab whatever they can grab, which is what Krav is based on. Whether it's big books or things off the shelf to be able to fight in a real actual scene. So. There you go. So we've got 3 different answers. Third today of 50-50.
I tell you what, if I hadn't watched Mission Impossible in the last 3 in the last week, it would have been Bond because I've seen the new Bond movie twice. It's awesome.
We actually
everyone out there, get out there and watch Bond.
Yeah, myself and my brother actually watched the Bonds leading up to. So we watched the Bonds in lockdown. We've watched the Bonds leading up to this, and then we've just started Mission Impossibles. He's least keen on Mission Impossibles, but I'm making him watch it. So we're up to Ghost Protocol number 4, which I actually probably love or rate almost.
That's where it goes. It gets awesome after that.
Yeah, it does.
That's awesome. Well, I love that we all went something different too. That's so good because we do 50-50 to highlight that everyone has different choices to make, as in life, as in investments. So,
and Arnie's choice is probably with the least credential because he likes Terminator 1 over 2. So his least credential choice.
Well, take that as you will. I think people might actually trust me a bit more over your two like horrible tastes. There's no accounting for taste, as they say. So.
Love
it. I'm glad you brought that up. It's been something that me and Arnie since high school.
His credibility wanes whenever he wanes.
It was a previous topic on a 50-50 when we asked Terminator 1 or Terminator 2.
Did it get a little bit passionate?
Well, I think it was split 50-50 only because we asked Marty's assistant.
He hasn't seen him, I don't think. So he's not a big action sci-fi guy. So anyway, we might have to bring that up again to another guest.
Obviously, Brad likes Terminator 2, so
Yeah. It's great. All right, crew. Well, great to catch up. Great to catch up with all you. And sorry for the viewers for leaving you for the past couple or month and a half. But you've got two for the price of one. You'll have pretty quick concurrent episodes come out.
Cheers, gang. See you soon.
See you guys.
Okay.
Bye.